Tiff, good to have you up here. It looks like we have Ted already in the space, and he's already sent his request in. So we did a test space with Ted last week, and he had his settings all adjusted, and everything was good to go. So this might be the easiest we've ever gotten someone into a space, Tiff.
Yeah, it looks like it's moving along very nicely already, and the room's filling up really fast. That's good.
Ted, welcome, welcome, welcome. Right now, Ted, your speaker is muted, which is fantastic. We can leave it muted for just a minute. So thank you so much for being here. We will be waiting for our other co-host. We'll see if he pops in shortly, and then we'll just give a short introduction and we will get right into it. So thank you so much for being here, Ted. When you want to speak, you can unmute yourself with that button in the lower left corner of your screen. So everyone, please retweet the space. This is only the second time we've ever gotten Ted Rice into a space, so this is a very special occasion. I can't overstate that enough. So I'll be posting our first space. I think it was 1 or 2 years ago during UFO Twitter Week, Tiff. You were my co-host for that, I think.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. I hope that we can touch on some of those subjects again in this space, and then also just check in and see what's new.
So I'll put that old space up in the nest if anybody wants to check that out. That was a pretty good one. I think that was Lorraine who facilitated that. Lorraine was visiting Ted and she was able to get him in the space. There's your mic is unmuted there, Ted. Jump in.
Okay, I want to say thank you very much for inviting me to join you today. I feel very special for this. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ted. So we'll just get started. Ted, your mic is unmuted and we can leave it like that as long as we don't get any feedback, and it sounds fine right now. So we could just leave it like that. It can get complicated to mute and unmute your mic when you're a speaker. So I'll just give a short introduction. Ted is just one of the OGs of the alien abduction phenomenon and research. He's the central figure in Carla Turner's book, Masquerade of Angels. And of course, Carla Turner is no longer with us. So it's always an honor and a privilege to speak with Ted. I first came across Ted Rice when I first came to UFO Twitter. It was 2023, and I was in a pretty bad funk. I was mentally, spiritually, emotionally just exhausted. I was at a point where I felt like I was living in Nightmare on Elm Street, that movie, like literally afraid to go to sleep at night. I found the community and there was a person, her name is Cambria, and I'll never forget it. She posted Masquerade of Angels by Carla Turner, and she just posted the PDF version. And she suggested that I read it. And I started reading it, and I could not believe the similarities in our stories. And so that was my first exposure to Ted. And never in my wildest dreams did I think I would be fortunate enough over the last couple of years to not only meet Ted, online and through Zoom, but we've had meetups on Zoom, phone calls. We did do a previous space together. We've been on 2 podcasts together. And Ted makes himself available to a very small group chat. There's 2 or 3, 4 of us in there. um, he makes himself available to answer questions. If there's a question I have about especially the OG abduction research, if I have questions about Carla Turner or Barbara Bartholic, I can ask Ted because Ted was there. Ted was there in person, and he knew these women, and he was part of their research. So I've been very fortunate to be in touch with Ted over the years, and again, very fortunate to have him here today. So, Ted, welcome. I would love to get, like Tiff said, if we could get just an overview of what's happening with you currently, your current view on the phenomenon, whether anything has changed, and then we'll just jump right into your story. I think you wanted to start with the cotton patch.
Okay, where I am today, my goodness, I'm a lot of places. Uh, I have come to the realization, from my perspective, my opinion, that the aliens we are dealing with are none other than the biblical demons. Uh, their behavior uh, shows them to be that way. The things they do to people, uh, the lies they tell, the harm they do to people's lives. Uh, if they're not the biblical demons, then they certainly have to be cousins somewhere, in my opinion. So that's where I am in my view in what they are. Uh, it's taken me a long time to reach that point, but I'm here, and that's where I am until circumstances give me a different view.
Yeah, so
So,
we're open to new information, Ted, and I think that's how you got to where you are. I want to remind the room and anyone who might listen to this in the future that Ted was a professional psychic medium in touch with his spirit guides, and he was very well respected in the field. So, Ted, I don't believe you started out with this view. This is where you ended. And I just want to point out that similarity. Um, I started out with that same view. I thought we were dealing with our space brothers. I didn't go into this uh, with a preconceived notion of these entities. I came to my current beliefs, which mirror yours very closely, after coming out the other side. So it's important that we can change our minds with new information, and I think that's where we're both at. And I'm also open to new information. I had a podcast yesterday with Steve Mara and Nathaniel Gillis, and my ears are wide open. I want to know, what's the new research, what's the new information out there, and what are we dealing with. So that's where we're at now, and I appreciate that, Ted. I wanted to talk real quick about how you kind of went dark for many, many years, and you've just come back out again, maybe in the last 2 or 3 years, which we very much appreciate. Can you just tell us quickly how and why that happened and why you decided not to speak for so many years?
sure, absolutely, not a problem. It started back in the 1990s. Carla was still alive. Barbara Bartholic was still alive. And I had had a neighborhood abduction that not only involved me, but it involved people living right next to me across the street and the husband, the wife, the children. Uh, After that event, my neighborhood had unmarked military the military green looking Jeeps and automobiles uh, that drove our neighborhood just constantly day and night. You want to get out and go to the grocery store, you're going to pass one of these. Uh, you get up at 2 o'clock in the morning and you look and you're going to see one of them going down the street. Not only that, there were unmarked DC-10s. One was white, one was military gray. They had dark windows. There were no markings on these planes, and they flew constantly over our neighborhood. Uh, I would try to talk to Carla or Barbara Bartholic on the phone. My phone would you could tell there was interference on the line. Oftentimes, just disconnects. So I had Southwestern Bell come out. They did a very thorough search, and they came to the conclusion that there was uh, interference on my line, uh, but it wasn't directly connected to my phone system. Uh, it was so sophisticated that they couldn't tell where it was coming from, but somebody was listening at every phone conversation that I was making. And so Carla and I began our research together, and we did a lot of work. Uh, Barbara Bartlett came and visited several times. We did a lot of work. We began putting together Masquerade of Angels. We completed it in late 1994. And right around that time, uh, Carla Turner, uh, began to become quite ill, and she had had men in black come directly to her front door and give her a warning that she needed to stop her research and her work. And she told the two men in black that they needed to FO, and you all probably know what that means, but I'll be kind enough not to say it. Uh, and then shortly after that, she had an experience on a mountaintop there in Arkansas where she lived, where she and her husband got caught in a fog, and they had a little missing time. And uh, shortly after that, her illness began to progress. Uh, Barbara Barthlet received a phone call, maybe more than one, that threatened her because of her work, but they didn't tell her exactly what would happen to her. Carla had the men in black threaten her. I received one in December of 94 and another one in January of 1995. Phone calls during the night. The voice sounded human, but had a little bit like of a mechanical tone to it, as if it was maybe like one of these now artificial intelligence voices that sound real, but yet you can tell there's something not quite normal about it as far as being human. Uh, this last one told me, under no uncertain terms, if I didn't put a lip, put a zipper on my mouth, something very unpleasant was going to happen not only to me, but to my two grandchildren that I had taken custody of and were living with me, and they were both just babies. And that really rattled my cage. Uh, First of all, how did they know I had these grandchildren? And why are they calling me and threatening me? So I decided after that, for the safety of these children and myself, who was their appointed caretaker, that it was better that I just withdraw. So Carla had had me giving some talks around the area in East Texas uh, and Texarkana and several places within driving range of Shreveport, Louisiana, where I was living at this time. This is where all this took place. And so I just finished up what we had on the table planned, and I retired from it. I said, it's not worth what I would be going through with these children and the worry and what if they did do something to them. And then it wasn't long after that we we learned that Carla's illness was terminal, and there really was nothing to do. So Miss Fringe, that's what brought it on. I just gave it all up. You know, I didn't want to endanger my family nor myself.
Yeah, understandable, Ted. So essentially, these men in black are these? Are you perceiving these as human, military, deep black projects? Are you perceiving these as non-human? I know there's a lot of debate, I suppose, and a lot of thoughts on what these men in black are, and they could be more than one thing, right? But in your case, I think you're perceiving this as pure human interference as far as the threats. Is that right or not right?
Well, actually, at the time, I didn't know everything that I know now. Even though I retired, so to speak, from doing any more research that Carla Turner had us lined up to do, or giving talks to groups of people. Uh, the book had come out, and I thought this is enough, and I'm not going to endanger my family. But I continued, unknown to a lot of people, I continued private research through hypnotic regressions with Barbara Barthwick. I made trip after trip after trip at my expense, but nobody was helping, to go from where I was living to Tulsa, Oklahoma, where Barbara Barthwick was located, and we would do research through hypnotic regressions with myself, and uh, talking with other people that of cases that Barbara had worked on as well. And I learned a tremendous amount of information after Carla had passed by my continued work with Barbara, which really helped me get to where I am today. As far as what I see these men in black to be, uh, I think they're some type of uh, humanoid, robotic humanoid creation. It looks like, from the way Carla described it to me, uh, they they kind of had they kind of reminded her of the tall, spindly grays, only they were filled out more to be more human looking. Uh, but they had a kind of a grayish looking. Now I didn't see them. I'm telling you what Carla told me they looked like to her. The skin was kind of a pasty gray looking. Having a little, maybe a tannish uh, mixture in there a little bit to give them somewhat of a human looking complexion, but it didn't look normal. Their eyes were not. Their eyes were human looking, but they were. Carlos said that they were uh, not exactly golden, they had a little bit of a brownish amber tone to their eye color. Uh, she didn't see any eyebrows. They did have a nose, but it wasn't a big nose. They so I feel that there are an alien creation of some kind, and that's what I feel like they are.
Okay, so in your specific case, because we hear about a lot of this men in black interference and a lot of different descriptions. So in Carla's case, she perceived these as non-human interference.
Yeah. She thought that they were an alien creation, and that part of their group. Definitely, she didn't feel like that they were. Uh, our government created them in some way. However, she did suspect that that they were part of a covert uh, government program in which our government was working with the aliens, and if the men in black probably was associated with that group.
Do you think it's possible they were giving like an artificial intelligence kind of feel, or do you think it was more organic, non-human intelligence?
I don't really know.
That's
Um,
fair.
I really I don't know. You want my own personal feeling on that?
That would be great.
I lean towards what Carlos was explained to me and Barbara, and which I just told you. Uh, I think the men in black are an alien fabrication of some kind, and I think they've been used by uh, a covert government U.S. program of some kind in which our government is working with these aliens, and the aliens have taken over certain levels of our military bases, and I have information. Back when I did psychic readings, I had on two different occasions two different people who were associated uh, on a very high level with government military, but U.S. government military bases, in which they came to me and did readings in which they shared with me confidential, life-threatening information that aliens were working throughout these bases. They would come in and out at night, and they did and had seen uh, reptilian looking beings at both of these bases, and these two people didn't know each other. So I want to bring that in. That's why I feel like that there is some type of covert programs going on that is not released to the public. I think Area 51 probably, based on some experiences that I've had that we can talk about at a later time, in which what I saw in an abduction when I was taken to where I think is Area 51 and what I saw. Uh, I think these men in black are creations they use to go and threaten people. Try to. Has anybody ever had a case where the men in black show up to do something good other than threaten? Anybody know of anything like that? I haven't.
Yeah, no, Ted, you're right. So I don't want to stop you from getting into Area 51. We can just let the conversation go where it will, and then we could always get back to Cotton Patch whenever you want. I did want to bring up, you mentioned the hypnotic regressions you were doing with Barbara, and I just want to bring it up for the room because there's a lot of controversy on hypnotic regression. And number one, just 2 points I want to make. Number one, I've never been regressed. And yet, I've seen a lot of the same things Ted has seen. We've seen some of the same creatures and some things that you just can't even read in the research, things that are just unusual and interesting, things that match up. And I see Amy is in the space as well. I see Carolyn here. So many times, I've never been regressed. Carolyn has never been regressed. And yet, so much of our information matches up with the information Amy gets from regression. So much of my information matches up with the David Jacobs and the Carla Turner research. And I like to also point out that people who are abducted by these things, whatever they are, they don't just decide one day, I think I'm going to go to be regressed to see if I'm being abducted by aliens. People have high strangeness happening in their lives. Ted was a psychic medium. He was in touch with his spirit guides. These men in black incidents were happening during the middle of the day, 3D physical reality. So a lot of things are happening. And we know there's something going on. Like there's a lot of strange things happening. We don't just decide, I think I must be getting abducted by aliens. I'm going to go get regression. So many of us have conscious experiences. Ted just had an experience a couple of weeks ago that he shared with me over the phone. I did post it on my feed, and that was not obtained through hypnotic regression. So I just want, do you mind addressing that, Ted? How much of your experience was not through hypnotic regression?
Uh, all of it, you mean, or just recently?
Yeah, just in general, in general.
Well, once I worked with Barbara for, I don't know, a couple of years in doing these regressions, it got to where I could actually just do it myself without being regressed. And so I'm at the point now, I can sit down and get quiet, and I can ease into and start letting my mind actually bring forth things that are being suppressed also at the same time, because when you're abducted or contacted, they don't want you to recall this information, and they try to make these suggestions to you that you won't remember it. Or if you remember anything at all, you're going to remember something pleasant so that you will say something good about them and what they're doing. And I have learned to get past that. And I can do that without being regressed. Now I do it myself.
Yeah, I think Amy's able to do that as well. Amy worked with David Jacobs for several sessions, and now she just can kind of relax her mind, and it's almost just trying to remember something that happened yesterday, and the memories just come forward. And what I just like to point out again, that is hypnotic regression, 100% reliable at all times? Probably not. But when that information is so closely matching up with people who have not been regressed, I think it's important to look at the big picture. And the big picture is these entities involved in abductions are, like Ted said, they're wiping our memories. They don't want us to know what's happening in these ships and in the under the bases. They're indoctrinating us to tell the world that they are our benevolent space brothers here to ascend us to the 5D. And they don't want people to know what I perceive as and Ted perceives as the truth. So thank you, Ted. Um, do you want to go into Area 51 or do you want to go back to Cotton Patch? And Tiff, do you have any questions?
Nope,
Well,
carry on. Yeah, please.
what's that?
Yeah, go ahead, Ted,
I
wherever you
was
want to
yeah,
go.
go ahead, Ted.
Well, what what would you like for me to do? I had suggested we talk about my childhood and things that happened there, because I've had people call me, I've had people write to me and ask me what it was like when I was a child. And I've never really covered that too much, other than Carla touched on some of it in Masquerade of Angels. So I thought it might be interesting to do that at some point, but we don't have to do that right now. We can talk about anything that you listeners would like to hear about. I'd be glad to tell you, to the best of my knowledge, what happened and what it means, or what I perceive it to mean.
Let's go ahead and start where you wanted to start, Ted.
Okay, you want to do the childhood?
Yeah, that sounds perfect.
Okay, all right. I want to say I was born in Alabama in 1942, December the 6th, 1942. For those of you who want to study astrology, I was born 5 miles out in the country in a little community called Gumbud, Gumbud. It was a large farm that belonged to my grandparents, and I was delivered there in my grandmother's house by a midwife who lived in a sharecropper's house down the road a piece. And supposedly, from what I was told, I was born with what they call a veil over my face. Now, of course, I wouldn't remember that. I'm telling you what people have told me. Uh, There was a doctor in town. The nearest town, 5 miles away, was Fayette, Alabama, Fayette. And a doctor came and certified the birth so I would have a birth certificate. And that was the beginning of my life and the first mystery there, if the veil over my face means anything. I I don't know that it really means anything other than just a wise tale, but some of you may have some thoughts on that. But the first thing that I remember, and I don't remember doing this, but the first thing that comes to me is what family members said that they noticed about me when I was a little boy, say about 3 to 4 years old, and I had learned to talk, that I would come and tell them about someone that I had been talking to. And my grandmother had said that sometimes she would hear me in a different part of the house having a conversation with someone, but she could only hear me. When they would pin me down and get me to tell them who I was talking to, I didn't have a name, but I would describe these people, and my grandmother always knew who they were. And many times it was her two deceased sisters. Uh, and that was the beginning of when the family thought that I possibly could be talking to dead people. And being a Southern Baptist family in rural Alabama, that was a big no-no. And I was discouraged to do that, and over time, I stopped doing it. I stopped talking to these people. The first thing after that that I recall that was mysterious, and part of this is in Masquerade of Angels. I had walked, I was about 5 years old. I had walked down the road, maybe close to a quarter of a mile to another part of the farm where I had an uncle uh, that had his 40 acres. And I had walked there because they had combine out and they were baling hay. And I went there and I rode on the combine with my uncle, and I got out and walked some of the rows, and I had hemmed up and caught a little baby rabbit. And so I wanted to take the little rabbit home because I had several wild animals that I had made pets out of. So I was taking the little rabbit home, and it had become very hot that day. And so on the way back, I came to an embankment on the road that was covered. The trees were all covered in what they call kudzu, Kudzoo. If any of you want to Google that and look it up, it's a mysterious looking vine that will just cover trees and hang down. And it actually can be kind of spooky looking in some cases. But I came to this and there was a lot of shade underneath, and I crawled up the embankment and sat there to cool off a minute. And I vaguely do remember t- touches of even though I was only 5 years old. I do remember all of a sudden becoming extremely sleepy. And the next thing I know, it was about 2 hours later, and I wake up and I've been asleep, and my little rabbit is gone. So I go to the house and I try to explain what happened, but nobody understood. But there was 2 hours of missing time there. Carla did write about this in Masquerade of Angels. Uh, for any of you who have read the story, you'll connect with what was going on there and how it came up again as I'm an adult living in Shreveport, Louisiana, when I'm terrified after learning what had happened there to me and my neighbors. I'm in my bedroom. It's during the night. I'm probably in my 40s. I wake up in the middle of the night and there is a baby rabbit in my bed. Mysteriously, how did this baby rabbit get in my house and in my bed that time of night? Now, a few weeks before that, I had gone for the weekend to Carla Turner's house in Arkansas, and I had an abduction there in which her ceiling opened up in the bedroom during the night. There was a helicopter above this. I could see it above, and I could hear the blades chopping, but there was no motor sound, but I could feel the blades chopping the wind. A military dressed human man beamed down, like beaming down Scotty, beamed down and was holding a little boy that looked like me when I was that 5-year old, identical. And he said to me, "We are returning what was taken from you when you were a child." And then he left. Well, what was taken from me was a baby rabbit. And then a few weeks later, there in Shreveport, Louisiana, during the night, uh, a baby rabbit appears in my bed. So you folks can make out of it what you would like. But that actually happened. And now moving on to that childhood period, there was one time there with my grandmother. There was nobody on the farm but my grandmother and I will say maybe I was 5 or 6 years old then, and I could never remember any details on this, and I still haven't. It is so totally blocked. But I remember waking up during the night, and I'm sleeping in the room with my grandmother. I'm on a little small bed, and she's on the big bed. But she gets up and wakes me up, and she gets me, and she puts me up underneath the big bed, and she crawls up under the big bed with me. And all I remember seeing was outside was a brilliant light. And the whole yard area through her bedroom window was so bright it almost hurt your eyes to look out there. And she apparently must have been very much afraid because she took me and we hid under the bed. And I've never been able to get any details on that. So that was another mysterious event that happened during my childhood. Then going on from there, I had a visitation from a deceased uncle when I was about 8, and I did tell my parents, and the message had to do with my mother. This deceased uncle, which he died before I was born, but I described him, and he gave me his name, and he came to tell me to tell my mother that she must get to the doctor right away because she is becoming quite ill. And that actually happened, and she didn't go to the doctor. She didn't follow the message that the uncle had given. What she did was discourage me from talking about it. But after that, she became quite ill with what they called yellow jaundice. And it became so bad that they almost gave her up and expected her to die, but then she did overcome it. Moving on from those childhood events, was the Cotton Patch abduction, and that is the abduction that led into the cloning, where this is where I actually broke through with Barbara Bartholick for the first time. I broke through and I actually saw what I had thought for years were angels coming to visit me, and I actually saw what the angels really looked like. And they were reptilian. They were the Greys. The Greys took me out of that cotton patch and they took me to a mothership, and where there were reptilians and all other kind of creatures. But this is where the cloning took place. And then after that event, uh, I move on. My father took a job with an insurance company, and we moved from the farm into uh, another town from where we were living. And here, the next thing that happened was the schoolhouse playground abduction. And this is where the love bite with Jill came about. If any of you have read Masquerade, you know about my infatuation with this young lady. Uh, that event, during the middle of the night again. Always they show up in the middle of the night. But there I am. I wake up, and there were three entities in the room, and they were dressed in emerald green and purple. They had on robes that were standing on sleds, and they took me and put me on the sled, and we rode on this contraption through the walls of our house there and across the street onto a schoolhouse playground. And this is where the UFO was sitting, and there were tubes like aquarium tubes, but they were tall, cylindrical, and full of some kind of fluid. And each one of these, there was another child in there about my age, and they were people that I recognized, that I went to school with, that lived in the neighborhood. And now, if I didn't know at the time, I didn't know really what to make out of this. I just remembered seeing all of it. But years later, looking at it under hypnosis, I realized that these weren't the actual students that I went to school with. These were clones, and we were all being replaced with these clones. And this is where they took something from the spirit of Jill and like threaded into me. It became a part of me. As they were doing this, I could feel her emotions, her feeling. But they did not do the same thing uh, for her in return, so it would be equal. And then here was this girl that I knew really very little about. I went to school with her, but we weren't friends. We didn't particularly run together or anything. But the very next day at school, the minute I looked at her, my heart jumped out. I felt love, what I thought was love, for the first time, and I was infatuated with this young woman for many years uh, until we ended up in Sun Valley, Idaho, years later, and then after that, I managed to get past it. Another thing that happened in this youthful time, and they're in the same town, same location, was I woke up one night. Now, this was months later, maybe a year later. I woke up, and the side of the bedroom wall just opened up like a kaleidoscope, and there there was this UFO out there, but it was turned sideways. So instead of taking me through the wall right out and then lifting me up into it, we just floated right into the bottom of the ship, which was turned sideways next to the house. And I remember it closing up, and then I'm sitting in a little chair, and then I see out the window just were moving so fast, the flashes of light and zoom. And this is when I was taken to Sun Valley, Idaho, and experienced the same thing that I experienced years later in real life. And I always said the only way they could do that so perfectly, in my opinion, was to take me into my own future. So I've always suspected that they can manipulate time, and if they took me into my own future to do that. So after that, we're moving more into adult things. Uh, there weren't too many things happened after that. If any of you have questions on any of these past things, but these are the unusual things that have happened to me growing up that I remember at this time.
Thank you, Ted. And these are the things that you later explored under regression?
Well, some of them I remembered
Right. Without
uh,
regression.
without regression. Like I knew I had been taken to Sun Valley. I knew where it was.
So
Um,
I just want to touch on that again, because there's so much these days, Ted, and I know you're not really neck deep in the community anymore, but there's so much pushback on the regression stuff, and people don't understand this stuff is happening, and that's why people seek regression because you remember being taken to a mothership. It's not just because we just wake up one day and think, oh, I must be getting abducted by aliens. It's because we have conscious memories that make us understand that there's a lot of high strangeness happening. Um, Thank you, Ted. Where do you want to go from here, Tiff? Where are you at? You have any
okay.
questions?
Yeah, I want to point out something before we
Yeah,
go,
go right
though.
ahead, Ted. Jump in anytime.
All right. After the Cotton Patch abduction, after the Shreveport, Louisiana abduction that involved the neighbors, after the Sun Valley abduction, after the abduction on the school playground, and some in later years, after every one of these, I became extremely ill emotionally. Emotionally, I was a wreck. I had to be taken to the doctor, and they actually put me on tranquilizers and things to try to get me calm. I would not sleep in a room without a light on. I would not sleep in a room. I would beg someone to sleep in the room with me at night, or I could not sleep. These are the things that people suffer after these abductions, and nobody knows why. I just think it's very important to look at what happens to people physically and emotionally after these abductions. And if these abductions are kind and beautiful experiences that some people play them up to be, then hey, they've missed something somewhere. Their minds have really been controlled.
Like, I in many experience there are reports that when they have, more vivid recalls of the situation, it seems like there's a lot of traumatic or medical type activities going on, and even though you don't personally have the memory of it, but the body reacts traumatized to the situation, it makes total sense.
Would just stop and think there, the Cotton Patch abduction. I was very, very emotionally and with my whole personality changed. Even the school teacher told my mother something was wrong with me. That was not the same child. Nobody knew back then I had been cloned and replaced. But yet buried in my subconscious, I knew I had been put to death. And then I come back and I'm trying to function and go on as normal. These things have to be looked at, people, and what's going on with all of us these days and what's happening to us.
Thank you, Ted. Ted, do you want to tell that story? Do you want to tell the cloning story? I think it's important to go back to the old research and to talk about Carla's research, and to talk about Carla did not quite buy into what's developed these days, and that's a lot of the David Jacobs stuff that they're creating hybrids. I think Carla more believed that they were creating clones, and I think that's where you're at as well, Ted. And I personally think it's both. But Carla believed, and jump in, Ted, because I have never met the woman. Carla believed that a lot of what women were seeing, a lot of women were seeing hybrid children. Carla believed that they were actually using these children as food. Is that right, Ted?
I saw it. I witnessed it. So either they played a sick joke on me, or either they really have a lot of the masses fooled about what they do with children. Uh, there they live in these spaceships, and it's hard for me to believe that they want to go and create all these children to bring in there to live, to raise, to take care of. Uh, I just don't see it. What I see is what I witnessed, and I saw uh, babies that have been uh, removed from the wombs of mothers before it's actually time. These fetuses were taken, and I saw these praying mantis cutting them open and eating, the organs inside. I witnessed this firsthand. I saw some of these uh, babies that were very tiny put in big blenders and blended up into blood and bones and everything, so that to feed some of these creatures they have on these ships. I witnessed this. I saw it. As far as the cloning, I was crossing a cotton patch from my grandmother's, going over to, my parents and I were living in a different house at that time, and it was separated from my grandmother's big house by a huge cotton field. And there was a little trail across it going from one house to the other. And I was crossing this. It, it, what the cotton wasn't big with the bolls blooming out like it is in late summer. This was in earlier part of the summer when it was just still green, and the cotton bolls were the plants were only maybe like a foot and a half high. But anyway, I'm crossing this, and it was a very gloomy, very cloudy day. And as I was walking across there, some light would shine here and there and get my attention, and it was kind of yellowish looking. And I remembered, now I consciously remember this before Barbara put me under. uh, I remembered it, but I couldn't explain it to anybody what I'd seen. But I remember looking up, and this through this dark cloud there was a beam of light that was so bright it hurt my eyes to look at it. So I remembered covering my eyes with my fingers and trying to peer through my fingers to see what was causing that tremendously bright light. And the next thing I know, I'm lifting up, and I'm smothering. I can't breathe. It's like I'm in a vacuum or something. And I remembered that with before I ever went under hypnosis. And now that's all basically all that I remembered consciously, but I did remember that part. But then under hypnosis, I saw that I was taken through a grating right up into the bottom of a ship. It wasn't a very big ship. There were three grays inside there, and they told me to stop talking verbally, that it wasn't necessary, that they could hear me, and for me just to think about what I wanted to say to them. And so they told me to sit, they had me sit in a little seat by a window. And as I looked down, I saw my grandmother's house. And then I saw us going up more and more and more to the the house and the farm got so small couldn't see it. And then we went into what was total darkness. It was just like the deepest dark part of space. And I remember still looking out the window, and I could see this huge globe-looking thing. It was round looking, but in the distance, it looked like what I would have thought would have been a planet. It was so big. And as we approached, I could see little spikes, areas sticking out over it in different places. And at the end of these spikes were openings, and I could see little ships, little UFO ships going in and out of some of these spikes. So these spikes were portals for those ships to go in and out. And when we went into one of them, and it stopped, and then I was told to get out, and I was led by these grays, and we went into uh, a doorway and then down a hallway, and uh, I remembered. Now this back in the 50s, there was a fascination for a while with automobiles that were gray and pink in color, and when we went in this hallway, these colors dominated this hallway, and it was a little different being there at it. It was a color we don't have, but it was a blend of gray and purple, you might say. It gave off a very strange color. There were no light fixtures anywhere, but yet everything was illuminated. I learned years later that these ships are illuminated with our energy. And as you go on different ships, you can there'll be a light blue hue that illuminates everything, a soft white. There would be kind of a pinkish color. I've seen all these, but they use human energy to illuminate these ships. Uh, as we go further into this, finally, I was taken into a room which looked like a little doctor's examination room, and I was told to get on a table and sit on it, and so I did. And a little nurse came in. She had red hair. She was short. She had on a little nurse's cap. She had a white gown on. She looked, and she had rouge and lipstick on, and so I thought she was kind of a little odd looking nurse. And anyway, I uh, started complaining that I wanted to go home, and she produced in a like a little glass some greenish yellowish greenish yellowish looking liquid that kind of glowed a little bit. Uh, at any rate, she said if I wanted to go home to be with my mother again, like I was begging to do, she said I had to drink that liquid. And so I drank it, and I died almost instantly. Within seconds, I was dead. And under hypnosis, going through that, I became hysterical. Barbara had to pause the regression that we were doing at that time. Uh, and I was so hysterical. It took three people to hold me down, and like it took like an hour to get me calm enough to go back and lay down with Barbara and try to see more. But I did. I did. Something just made me feel inside I had to do this, and so I did it. But after uh, after I died, I saw what appeared to me, and I stand to be corrected as we learn more and go in the future, but what appeared to be was there on the table lay my deceased body. Rose up out of this was a shadowy, whitish looking figure that reminds me of some of the pictures we've seen of ghosts. It got up, it still had kind of a human shape, form like arms and legs to it, but there were no eyes or anything. It was just like a kind of a white gray mass. It kind of walked over to the side. It didn't go running off or anything. And then rising up, following it was this brilliant light. Uh, it was a, a glob of light. I don't know how to describe it other than just a glob of light. And it was so brilliant that it would hurt your eyes to look at it. And the little nurse and another gray, they brought very quickly a little black box. I'm going to say it was about the half the size of a cigar box, something like that size. And they laid it on the chest and they did something to activate it. And this light had been stuck to this green liquid. It could not break loose of this green liquid. It was like it was some kind of paste holding it. And then they, after they activated this little black box, this glob of light just coiled and slowly was like sucked into this little black box. And then they took the little black box and they took it away somewhere. And then I saw after that and prior they had, when they took me to the room, they had made me remove my shoes and socks and all my clothes. I was naked. And so after this, they then took like a little, about the size maybe of a little pocket knife, and it had it was hanging on like a wire contraption from above. But anyway, there was a beam of light came out of this little pocket knife size thing hanging on this wire, and they cut off my head, and it fell into a basket below. They cut off my arms and my legs. They dismembered, and they took those and they packed them into a small crate. And then they tilted the table that I was on, and all the blood began to flow out of my body into a bucket. And after that, we went to my consciousness carried me down the hallway further. Now, I feel like, and I've never been able to explain this, but I feel like there was some force taking me that these grays did not say. And by the way, this little nurse was a little small gray dressed up like a little nurse. You take off that nurse's cap and that red wig and wash off that rouge and lipstick and take off that uniform. You had a little gray. That's exactly what it was. It was all deception. But anyway, moving down this hallway, I was taken into a room and shown where there were very large vats, and they were like kind of humming and moving and pumping, and so I didn't want to look. When Barbara was guiding me, I refused to go look in the vats to see what was there. But and she didn't try to pressure me. She was very easy about letting me go where I was comfortable going. But after some bit, I decided that I would look, and so I walked forward and I looked in the vat, and there were little globs of meat, which I learned shortly afterwards as I saw one of the grave workers remove one of those globs, and they put it in a machine and they injected into it. I don't know what they injected into it, but they made some injection into this glob of meat, and then they turned on some equipment and lights, and this little glob of meat began to uh, grow arms and legs, and it grew into, it kept growing and kept growing until it actually had become a little body, and looked identical to me before they killed me. And and so then after this, uh, after that body is grown like that, I was taken to another room and put in what looked kind of like a barber chair, and in this barber chair, now this is where it becomes really interesting to me, was instead of Rays coming in there, there were Nordics. There were three Nordics came in with their long blondish hair, and their pale white skin and their blue eyes. They came in and they worked on my fingernails and my toenails, and they cut my hair, and they had uh, they did everything to groom me to look exactly like I was before. Anybody have any questions so far on any of this?
No, we're good, Ted. We're just listening. Thank you so much.
It
Yeah.
is interesting that the Nordics greys and the insectoids seem to be reported on the same uh, units often.
Well, after they finished grooming me, that's when I was taken, and I met two other kids. There were three of us, and we were taken into this auditorium where all these creatures were, and standing guard. This is why when people ask me about Bigfoot, uh, I don't know uh, what's behind Bigfoot all the way. Certainly have no idea. But the positions I saw Bigfoot, they were standing guard, so to speak, at the door. And going into this auditorium, uh, there was, a Bigfoot standing there like a great big gorilla looking character. And so I've seen them before in these positions. So I'm thinking one of their responsibilities in association with aliens, UFOs, is they serve as some sort of security in case things were to get a little out of hand. That's just my opinion, but that could definitely be wrong. But I'm taken into this, and I'm taken out on a stage overlooking this tremendously large auditorium with so many different kind of creatures. There were grays, there were reptilians, there were Nordics, there were Bigfoots, there were praying mantis, there were strange uh, roach-looking characters. There were sections that were like pods of water that had some weird, strange-looking like sea creatures in them that that I've never seen so many different kind of creations before as I saw in that. Anyway, we're out on the stage, and this very large Nordic looking man walks out. He's extremely handsome. I always said he looked just like Robert Redford in his younger days. Very good looking young man. Anyway, he walks out there and he's in charge. And then I asked Barbara, I, I, I paused the abduction and took a little break, and then I told Barbara, I said, when I lay back down and look at this, there's something about that character that makes me very uncomfortable. I said, I want to look at that more carefully. And she said, well, we'll do what we can. So she puts me back under. I lay back down, and we get going, and we get back to that scene again. And as I'm looking to this Robert Redford standing there, he suddenly turns into a dinosaur shaped head. And I said, Barbara, I think I see what was bothering me. But at any rate, he picked me up and he was holding me. And as he was holding me, he was funneling my bottom. There I was, what, 8, 9 years old, somewhere around that age. And he's doing this to me. Uh, Disgusting. It really upset me. It really bothered me. Uh, but he brought out 10, no, I said 10, but I think it was 12. Yeah, it was 12 strange little characters that were short. They had on brown looking, monk looking hoods and robes, and their faces had fiery red eyes. On the other side of the platform, he brought out what looked like 12 little grays. They were dressed in little blue jumpsuits with like suspenders looking, but they weren't suspenders. It's just the way their uniforms were made and covering them. But they were brought out in one side, and uh, he introduces us, me and the other two kids. He introduces us to the audience, and he tells the audience that we are uh, the new development. I forget the word he used, uh, but we're the new whatever he's introducing us to, and then I feel like, and I have felt this all along. I feel like these little monk looking characters, which were evil looking, were 12 bad or negative guardian angels sent to overlook us. And these others were 12 good guardian angels that were sent to do good for us, to make us experience in human form both phases of life, the good and the bad. Now, this is what they represented, and I think they try to operate under this type of program with us now. Uh, but this is not. If any of this, I think, was true, there would be some type of clues we would find in our Holy Bible. Uh, I think this is personally at this point in my life. I think this is strictly demonic work by. I think I was abducted and taken by Satan and his minions, and I was introduced to their operation and what they're doing on humanity. Uh, the Bible says Satan has control over this planet. Well, from what I've experienced here, he does. But that doesn't exclude our Bible and Jesus Christ and what actually was given to us uh, to lead us and guide us. And I think this is why, in some of my experiences and some of the other people, when I have been able to maintain some type of control during an abduction and when they come, if I start praying out to Jesus Christ to help me, it usually ends it. They back off, they disappear. And I think there's a message in that and that needs to be looked at. Uh, but anyway, that was the cotton patch abduction, and that's what happened. Uh, there might be another point. A person sent to me one time uh, a clipping, maybe out of a story, a magazine, or a book. I'm not sure, but anyway, it had been printed out, and she mailed it to me, in which Saint Germain had been reappearing at different times in history, and he was asked what was the secret to his ability to do that, and he said that it was a greenish yellowish liquid that he drank. Uh, and of course, if that is real and that's true, then he drank that liquid. He died, and they cloned him back at a later time in life when they wanted him to reappear. That's just my thinking on that. Do I think I'm Saint Germain? Heck no. I'm just saying they did to me the same thing they had been doing to him. Uh, but at any rate, that is that's the cotton patch cloning. If any of you have any questions, I'd be glad to try to answer it.
Oh, thank you, Ted. Ted, we do have our second co-host in the room. That's Ulrich. You could probably see his Doom name right next to you. So, Ulrich, welcome to the space. We also have another space this afternoon with Michaela, right? Right, Ulrich?
Yeah, we do. I'm just unmiking to see if the audio works. Ted, my sincerest apologies. I'd like to blame it on angels and demons, but something got into me and I fell asleep. I was wide awake, but it's extraordinary just hearing your voice. Do we already lose him?
Yeah, you kicked him. Doomer, you kicked him. That's our first glitch with Ted in
Are
the
you
space,
serious?
is
Talk about a
he's now
ghost in a
gone.
machine.
You missed some decent stuff. So I've just been letting Ted talk. That might frustrate people, but um, so my style of interview is a little bit different. I have a lot of investigative experience, and most of the time, what I learned as an investigator is just to let people talk, and you get all of the information as they're telling their story, and then to go back and answer questions when they're done talking. So I know people get frustrated about, oh, wait, what about this? What about that? That's just not my style of interviewing. I've found that I can get a lot more information just by letting someone talk. So we have Ted back in the space. I did, Ted, number one, I want to respect your time. I know we talked about just doing an hour and maybe doing more of these spaces, but I wanted to check and see how you were feeling before we do get to maybe a few questions about what you've discussed so far. And Ted, your mic is probably still muted. You want to go down? Oh no,
Okay.
he has a blue dot. Oh, there you are,
Can you
Ted.
hear
Go ahead.
me? All right. First of all, I want to say the gentleman spoke to me, and the minute he spoke, my phone went dead.
People say that to me a lot, Ted. No, it's extraordinary hearing your voice in the space. I think Fringe was asking you, how are you on time? We want to have you in these spaces back again as frequently as possible, and whether you have time for a few questions right now. And just thank
Yeah,
you for being here in spaces with us, Ted.
I can do a few. I'm 83 and with poor health, and I get mentally tired. So I don't want to go a lot longer, but right now, heck yeah, I can take a few questions. Go ahead.
Thank you, Ted. I have two questions that I promised to ask from the audience, but before we get to that, I would like to ask you, you talked about how our soul energy is running some of the illumination that we see in the ships. And we have talked before in the Doom Room about how these ships themselves are likely running on our soul energy, and that's just for lack of a better term. We don't know what that is. Ganga calls it an animating energy that they are siphoning from our souls. How do you perceive that, and have you ever had an occasion to see that being collected?
Okay. First of all, do any of you been able to ever to see a human aura?
Yes, yes. Me and Tef are an affirmative. I'm not sure about Doomer, but probably
Okay.
many
I
people in the space have.
Yeah, no,
Okay.
I have not. Maybe something like that on psychedelics and photos, but I have not without drugs.
Okay. Uh, if you develop where you can see the human aura, you're going to see a band of colors like around the top of our head. Most people can just sometimes see a shadowy light, but if you really learn to tune in to this energy emitting from us, you're going to see an arrangement of colors, and these colors are generated by our emotions in our body. We are creating this band. For instance, if a person is really having financial problem, sometimes it will show up in a form of a green color. If you're really having love issues, uh, you can see pink, and the lighter, the bigger the pink, the more spiritual love the person has there. But anyway, I could go on describing these, but these colors and this aura, and we've all seen pictures of Jesus with the light around his head. That's his aura. And so if you learn to see these energies are what they take, and they create a lot of they create a lot of fear and anxiousness and excitement in us at times, especially fear, because it creates a lot of sudden energy that really fills our aura. And they like to siphon this out. They're taking these energies out of our aura structure around our bodies, and they're taking this and they're using these energies uh, for various things, and uh, like illuminating certain areas. And I was taken one time in one of my many abductions. I was taken and I was put in a room where they put some weird looking it looked like a diver's helmet with a lot of tubes coming out at the top of it and going up into bigger tubes and up into the walls. But anyway, when they put this on me and they activated this machine, it just siphoned out all the energy I had. After it was over with, and it didn't take long for them to do that. I was just, I couldn't even stand up. I had such low energy. So I have witnessed this, I've experienced this, and I haven't really run across anybody else really familiar with this, but this is what I saw, and that's what I think they were doing.
Thank you, Ted. And you're not alone. Malanga's research shows that very same thing. That they're siphoning some type of energy. I'm not sure we have a name for it. Like you said, you can see the aura. Ganga calls it our animating energy. So there's something there that we have that they're after, and they steal it from us and use it for their own purposes. And then adjacent to that thought, what are they doing with all of these body parts?
Well, okay, I've seen in more than one abduction where one let me say this. One time when I was living in Albuquerque, New Mexico, I was abducted, taken over and into a tunnel in the mountain there behind the air base, And I traveled through this tunnel and still inside this little ship, carried all the way to Dulce, New Mexico, and was taken there and inside, and I saw ships. I witnessed ships bringing in people who were sitting there stunned. They were put on pause. Uh, I saw one woman, and I would say probably her son sitting beside her. The son may have been 8, 9, 10 years old. Uh, they were taken. I wanted to go to them. I did get close enough, and I tried to yell at them to wake up, and they couldn't hear me. And I seemed to be covered in some shield in some way that nobody could see me. But at any rate, I saw in one of these rooms these humans that were brought in these ships. All their clothing was taken off. They were uh, they were put to death, like I had been in the Cotton Patch abduction. Only this was a mass operation. It was there in the Cotton Patch abduction. It was just one thing going on. It was me. I didn't see a lot of other humans going through this, but here, this was like a big operation. Little ships were bringing in people constantly, and they put them on like a little train and rode them into the slaughter room, I call it. And there they were put to death. All their extremities were chopped off with laser lighting. Uh, and all these arms, legs, feet, all of it was packed into metal looking crates with like ice uh, put on them. They were packed up. And I saw these crates of human body parts being loaded onto other little ships in an apartment where they were taking them and leaving with them. And I heard and I read one time where someone else described this noise, but I'm going to tell you what I saw, as gross and horrible as it is. But I kept hearing this ripping, this dull ripping noise. I would hear it every once in a while, and whatever had carried me there to witness this, uh, wanted to make sure that I saw everything. That was the impression I got. So anyway, I'm taken to this room, and they're hanging on big meat hooks with the heads gone, arms and legs gone, just the torso hanging there on big meat hooks, and they hook a big clamp like to the backbone, and they absolutely rip the the bone structure out of the body, out of the torso, and that was making that noise. And in other words, they were filleting human body parts, and where they went after that, I don't know. Now, the disturbing thing that I saw here, to me, not only they brought clones out and putting them back on the ship that took the bodies. So their program is, and their deception is, they're feeding off of human body parts, our flesh, our bones, our blood. They're they're living off of this, and they're taking it. And Dulce there in that area down below it's nothing but a manufacturing or a processing center or slaughterhouse. That's all it is, and that's why our military can't get down there. Uh, but at any rate, that's what I saw and what was going on. And one of the things that really shocked me was the overseers or the workers that were taking these humans off of these ships as they were bringing them in and putting them on the little uh, conveyor belt thing that was riding them in there. Uh, they were humanoid humans wearing military green, grayish, brownish color. Uh, look like military attire, and on their they had an insignia on their arms, and it was a swastika. And I saw that up close, so I have to be honest and tell you what I saw. That it was I never expected that, but I saw it.
Ted, what do you make of that? And which race are we talking of the alien type? Nordics, reptilians?
Well, these men were they all had blondish colored hair. Yes, there may have been some variation. There were several of them working. I don't know how many throughout the system, but there were several of them there where I saw. I'm gonna say as many as 4 or 5, and they all wore this uniform. They all had this swastika. They all had short, groomed hair, like you would expect in the military, but it was a very light blondish color, and their skin was very light looking, but they looked a little more human than the Nordics.
Ted, is it okay if I ask one more follow-up question? And Fringe, is it okay? I know we're down to.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you. It's historical having you in the space, and we want you back. I'm just asking you to dive deeper. What is your best assessment, your best opinion on what is going on with the history of the swastika, Nazis, and the bleed over to Nordics, the deep space program? Just anything you have to say regarding technology transfer, maybe a loose trade or a trade for souls, right? Like were a bunch of Jews killed in a sacrificial loose farm transfer in World War II. What is going on with the crossover between Nazis, Nordics, and reptilians? Whatever you have to say, I would appreciate it.
Okay. Am I still there?
Yeah, we hear you loud and clear, Ted.
Yeah, I hear you.
Okay. Uh, my phone was looking like it was trying to shut down again. I don't really know the answer to all of that. My suspicion is this: that Hitler was controlled totally by these negative aliens. That whole program, uh, of course, they didn't get the bodies. The bodies of the Jews were all cremated, but they got the energy. The energy was siphoned off. They can siphon this energy right in front of you when nobody's watching. And this energy, these people may have been thrown into alive. They may have been thrown into one of the furnaces, but that energy is not going to burn. It's going to go somewhere. And they were so they it was more than one thing going on. In my opinion, they wanted all this energy, but at the same time, it, uh, there is a because I witnessed it on the Cotton Patch abduction. Uh, there was a little small character who was very Jewish looking, who uh, tried to stand up to what they were doing to me, but he wasn't able to do anything. And uh, I think there is a constant battle going on between these two forces, and it's biblical. And if you leave out everything in the Bible just because that's not a popular thing these days, we're cheating ourselves out of a lot of knowledge about what all of this is truly about. And I think Hitler was operated and run by these demons, and I, that's why I think this where the swastika actually originated, probably from them, and it was just carried over into this program that's going on at Dulce now.
Thank you so much. And Fringe, I don't want to, I'm sure you have like the most urgent questions. I just felt that was one of them that we all have in our head. Ted, it's amazing hearing you.
Well, thank you very much. I have to tell you, I'm old. I'm in my 80s. Uh, I, I, I'm a country boy. I grew up in the country. Even though I got a college education, I want all of you to know I'm not as articulate as you people are, and so forgive me for that. But I'm doing the best I can. Okay?
I think you're clear, and you have an insight to areas that we have a lot of questions to. The fact that we understand what you're saying and you're bringing answers we can't get anywhere else, I think that's all we care about. As far as I'm concerned, you're incredibly articulate, Ted.
Well, thank you very much. I want to help all of you, and I will come back with Fringe at a later time, and we'll continue with these sessions because at my age and my health, I may not be around a lot longer. I hope I am, but I may not be, and so I want to give all of you everything that I can.
I hear it in your voice. I don't want to overstep my welcome or push you too far, but right where you left off, can I ask just one logical follow-up question?
Yeah, absolutely.
This war between obviously some sort of sacrifice, some sort of blood exchange, some sort of loosh extraction, to your best understanding, what is this war about? Obviously, it's a battle for the human soul, but what is really being fought over, and what role does consent play? Why are these beings seemingly always trying to negotiate our consent? What's your best understanding so far?
Uh, well, at this time, I believe that Satan is reptilian and Satan runs this planet. And they found eons ago that it was difficult to stay here alive, walking the planet with us uh, for reasons. I don't know all the reasons, but I think they found it very difficult. And so they set up this human and created this human to to do all these things that they're taking from us now. They created us. We are their cattle, and they live off of us. They live off of our flesh. They live off of our energy. Now, they have to keep us confused, deceived, and in the dark for that program to work. If they don't, we're going to quit cooperating when we find out what we really are. And it's like if you had a pasture full of cattle and you got tired of tending that cattle every day, and you could live in a housing development above the earth and just look down, your cattle would get kind of wild and crazy without any leadership. So you started giving the cattle some intelligence, and you started working on the mentality of the cattle. You wanted it to get to the point where it could take care of itself. So, you know, there came in my opinion, the Cro-Magnon and Neanderthals, and leaping from one to the other. Uh, because they wanted to get the human to where it could actually take care of itself and learn. And it's been put on as evolution, and it is in some way. But they continue this. But if the cattle that you're looking at, once you made it smart, if it realized all of a sudden that, hey, we're going to be taken to the slaughterhouse. We're going to be food. They're going to revolt, and the cows are not going to cooperate. And so I think all of these programs that have all these deceptive programs that all we humans are dealing with from these demons is nothing but ways to keep us confused and in deception so that we don't figure out what's really going on because the truth is going to set us free.
Thank you, Ted. I appreciate that. And yes, Doomer stole my last couple of questions because I really do want to let you go. I want to make sure you come back. Can you give us just one wrap up before you leave? And that is,
Yeah,
what do you
sure.
think the end game is here? What happens to us when we die, as far as you know? And then we're just going to say thank you very much for your time.
Okay. Well, there is a good side, in my opinion. And I think that our souls, which is this ball of light that I saw, I and they have to contain it with something to keep it and recycle it in these clonings. Uh, but at some point, we break loose of that and we're going to go because the real guardian angels are going to come and take us to a big mothership called heaven. And there we're going to live peacefully, and it's going to be like heaven. Uh, it's told that it's going to be, but for us to really start appreciating this, we have to accept the fact that, in my opinion, and I stand to be corrected, but I think all of it is a big uh, program of of what you might call entities from somewhere. Uh, I think God, Jesus, all of it, uh, Satan, all of it, and they're in battle with each other. But I think they've all come from somewhere here, and they're participating in this big program. But I think God's reason for this participation lies in the fact that there are big plans for us throughout the universe, that God has intentions for us. And in order for us, as these balls of light, which are souls, and in order for us to actively participate in these future plans that the Bible doesn't tell us anything about, is we have to experience all kinds of evil and goodness. What good are we going to be to God to go as ambassadors into the universe, 5,000 years from now, if we don't if we don't know both, so that when we run into these issues somewhere in the universe, we know the difference between good and evil. And we have to learn that somehow. And all of these programs are connected, in my opinion, because we're being prepared for this. Uh, Now, the Bible doesn't say that, but that's just Ted's hunch. That's my feeling. And I stand to be corrected. But I think the way to go is through Jesus Christ and God at this time, because I know firsthand when I use that energy and those names, I get positive results. So I don't feel like it's fair to just totally dismiss it because you don't like religion. You know, uh, we got to be fair in this situation.
Ted, thank you so much for being here. We have already gone almost an hour over the time that you were going to give us today. So thank you so much. I'm sure you're exhausted. We'll continue our chats in the back channels, and I hope to get you back. Please don't take our extension today too seriously. If we schedule an hour next time, we can stick to the hour. And we're just happy to have you here. Thank you so much, Ted. I appreciate you. And Ted heard nothing about what I just said.
No, yeah, I was
Ted is
about to say, I'm sorry, I should have added that.
Ted, thank you so much again for being here today. I'm sure you're exhausted. Thank you for agreeing to do the space. And I really hope that we can schedule some more of these, even if we just keep them to an hour. and we're able to bring up audience and bring up audience questions and do that kind of thing for the future. There's going to be a lot of questions for you, Ted. So thank you so much for being here today. We appreciate your time.
Okay, you're very welcome. And get with me later and we'll talk about it another time. Okay?
That sounds so good. Thank you, Ted.
Thank
Okay.
you, Ted. Have a wonderful, blessed day.
Thank you, all of you. Goodbye.
Hearts in the chat for Ted.
Goodbye.
So, let's see. Ted's probably going to disconnect here. But in the meanwhile, let's see if we can get Ulrich back up here. So Ted brought the doom. I mean, it doesn't get any doomier than that. You missed some of it, Ulrich, but it doesn't get much more doomy than the aliens using us for food. A lot of times people don't want to believe that. It just sounds like a conspiracy theory, kind of like how everyone thought the Epstein stuff was a conspiracy theory. This conspiracy is coming right at you guys. And I'm going to add a couple of speakers. We'll just chit chat maybe for a little bit. We do have another space coming up. So, yeah, Ulrich, you missed a little bit there in the beginning, but Ted was just getting a feel and telling his stories. And I just wanted to make sure that I always like to hammer home that regression is not perfect. There's a lot of pushback on regression, and oh, abductions were only happening in the 90s when we had all these people doing regression. And it's just not true. It's not true at all. We have abductees in this community, including myself, who have never retrieved an abduction memory by being regressed. And you could hear just from Ted's stories that he had a lot of stuff going on in his childhood. He was a psychic medium. He was in touch with what he believed were spirit guides. And years down the road, he realized one of his spirit guides was a reptilian. And so this was daylight. This was 3D physical stuff that was happening. And just like so many abductees, these strange things are happening to us. And yes, in the 90s, especially, a lot of people did go to these the OG researchers, and a lot of them were doing hypnotic regression. But it's not as common these days. I am in touch with so many abductees who will tell these same stories that Ted is telling you today, and they've never had regression. So the critique on the abduction research is always about regression, and nobody wants to talk about all the people who have never had regression who tell the same exact story. So that's really what you missed, Ted, Doomer. I always like to cover that at least 10 times in every space. Elections, you're glitching. I'm not sure what's going on.
So,
Can you hear me?
Fringe, there is
Can you
an
hear
issue
me?
in spaces.
Yeah. Um,
Yeah, there is an issue in spaces where I've seen hosts not see other co-hosts or somebody else. Like when you were DMing me, said that I was glitching. I was doing fine, but your view, it was hallucinating. There's an
oh
issue in
yeah, that could
spaces.
be happening. I know a couple people complained about the audio. This space, I had to schedule this space like 8 or 10 times. I can't remember how. And then I wasn't able to go back in and edit it. So spaces are definitely glitchy right now. I'm still grateful for them, of course, getting someone like Ted in here. He was very generous with his time today, so I really hope to have him back. He was going to go into the Area 51 stuff. He has so many stories, you guys, and I'm just very grateful that I can message Ted any time of the day or night and say, hey, what about this? What about that? What did Carla think? What was Barbara thinking? Because some of the thoughts and the research back then are not the same, as where we're at now. And unfortunately, we have lost these people. We have lost the OG research. And yes, a lot of it was regression, but you guys heard what Ted said. What happens is we go back. So for instance, I had not too long ago, within this last year, I was awake, yes, in my bed, but sitting up awake in my bed when I saw my entire wall disappear and a giant arc of light coming through the wall. So the wall disappears and I can see outside into the light. Ted explained something very similar to this while you were gone, Ulrich. And I thought, oh shit, I am going to be awake. Bring it, bitches. Like, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be awake. And that was the last thing I remember. In fact, I was not awake. I was my memory was wiped. Whatever happened after that, I don't know. And so a lot of times the hypnotic regression is used to go back and investigate, well, what happened during that incident? What actually happened after you remember this very strange thing happening while you were awake? So many things have happened to me while I'm awake. This doesn't just happen, alone at home in bed at night while you think you're dreaming. And so a lot of times regression is used to go back to try to retrieve these memories. I know there is some critique, especially I was talking to Amy in the back channels, and someone who was very, very careful about regression, that's David Jacobs, and he was meticulous about the way he does regression. I think Carla and Barbara were doing it a little bit differently. Someone like Lori McDonald as well, she does it just a little bit differently. I think a little bit more loosely. And so I think the important thing is not to look at every single incident as being 100% true, because we also have to understand these things are trying to control our perception at all times, except for when you heard Ted say they wanted me to see this for some reason. They do those things. I don't understand why. I'm sure there's different motives there. But instead of looking at each individual story that we tell as experiencers and as abductees, I think the important thing is to just look at the totality of the research. What does the totality of the research say? What am I saying? I've never been regressed. Carolyn has never been regressed. What are we saying? There's other people I won't name without their permission. They're not being regressed these days as much as they were back in the 90s. And yet we're saying the same thing. And so look at the totality of the research. What does the totality of the research say? Don't get hung up on individual stories. Just take a bird's eye view and, put it all together and see what you think. Doomer, Tiff, jump in, and then we'll get to elections. And we can talk about the other space we have coming up. And then we also have Alberino coming up shortly, if you guys want to talk about that.
Yeah, it's historical just hearing him in the space. I couldn't agree more. We're in a place in ufology where if you're in ufology and you can't tolerate hearing a dissenting view, a differing view, um, then you're going to have a hard time. I heard Ted in the few minutes from when I tuned in say, this is my experience. I know it's religious, but this is what I think is going on. I'm sorry if that's not what you want to hear. I'm not a religious person, and it's obvious the phenomenon is intimately tied with religion. It's obvious the phenomenon is influencing our consciousness. So this idea that we should clutch our pearls because we don't like that something is involving our faith, our beliefs, our consciousness is kind of crazy to me. Everybody's trying to figure out what is going on, right? And so I was wondering after we hear elections if you or I could read that post that you have up closer to the top of your timeline regarding Ted. I think it's interesting and it's relevant to this. And I just wanted to apologize to everybody. I'm sorry. I don't know what happened. I was awake less than an hour prior to the space, and I just woke up. I'm not saying I've been abducted or anything, but it doesn't make sense to me why I fell asleep. So I'm sorry, and thanks for being so understanding. But it's incredible if we can have Ted back in the space repeatedly,
And I
right?
and
And
I feel
I'll
like we took a little bit
yeah,
of
yeah.
advantage of him today, and I could tell we were kind of pushing, but he did say himself, and he says this very regularly. He says, "I'm not going to be around long," and Ted is like our last OG abductee who's around, who knew Carla, who knew Barbara, who knows all of the lore. And to your point, one of your points, Doomer, he was not religious either. He wasn't religious. He was a psychic medium. He was in touch with spirit guides. He was in touch with the dead. He was not religious. And so many people come out of these experiences and they become religious. Half of ufology, all those people at the top of ufology, they've become religious. We have scientists becoming religious because it's right there in our faces, and it's only after they see behind the curtain that they even accept that as reality. Now, it's my personal opinion they've chosen the wrong side. But so many of them do become religious after they see behind the wizard's curtain. Tiff, did you want to comment at all before we get to elections? Could be glitching, could be not glitching. Tiff also isn't feeling well, and she has a sick kid at home today, I think. So, Tiff, thank you so much for being here and jumping up as co-host for me today. Appreciate it. If we don't have anything else, we'll just go to elections. Elections, welcome.
Can you hear me, Fringe?
Yeah, we got you. Elections, were you able to hear Ted when you were a listener?
Oh my God, yes.
Okay, good.
And I'm a kind of a puddle right now from listening to his testimony. I listen to a lot of very gnarly stuff, and I try not to be, to divert my eyes from looking at whatever needs to be looked at. But this man's testimony, he's got to be the bravest person I've ever heard in my life. And I'm going to have to re-listen to this to really take it all in. There's so many things that you could pull threads on, but if you could clarify one thing for me. When he said he saw himself dismembered and his spirit was put into the box, is he under the impression that his physical body right now is a clone? Is that correct?
Yes. So this is a really interesting area. I'm glad you brought it up. So yes, and so this black box, and I've seen the box. It when I've seen the box, it was very actually very colorful looking. But what these things do, and this is just for lack of a better way to explain it, but they put you into in my case, I had experienced this as a computer screen or a computer program, a black computer screen. A lot of the abduction research talks about these black boxes, and there's some kind of technology where they're able to draw our soul or our astral body out of the physical body. They put us into containers, for lack of a better word, and then they put us back into cloned bodies. I've been in so many other bodies, you guys would just laugh, and you're probably laughing right now, but they put us into other bodies and then sometimes put us back into our own bodies. And so in this particular case, Ted believes that he might even be some kind of a walk-in soul into this new body. I have come back missing a birthmark. Ted has come back with one foot bigger than the other. So Carla believed that they weren't creating hybrids as much as they were creating clones. Now, I do think that it's a both. I think that a lot of the the hybrid babies that Ted saw being eaten, and others as well, by the way, they were rejects. Like they were the ones that were being thrown away. They weren't coming out correctly back then. I think they're doing a lot better with these now. So I think these ones were just being thrown away and put into the blenders and being consumed. And that's the reality of the situation, you guys. Again, do we want to look at each individual story? No, but when you look at the totality of the research, this is a signal that's coming through the noise. So, yeah, the cloning thing is definitely on the table, elections. So, he perceived that his soul left his body that day and maybe even went to heaven. And he's not sure if he's even the original Ted in this body right now. So again, I know that sounds wild. I'm not sure if you guys saw my post about the space that's coming up with Jason Sands, but I am in a lot of spaces, and sometimes I'm in the space, sometimes I listen anonymously. I don't participate a lot as a speaker unless I'm invited. But I see in this community something that is very, very frustrating, and that is a lot of virtue signaling about experiencers. Oh, the experiencers, they have all the answers. We got to listen to the experiencers. And then inevitably, we open up our mouths and we are called mentally insane. You must have been dreaming, or you're a liar, or a grifter, or all of the above. Some combination of psychosis and also grifting and lying at the same time. I was talking to this about this yesterday with Steve Mera and Nathaniel Gillis. People say they want to hear from the experiencers until we open our mouths and we tell you what's going on, and it doesn't fit your reality. And so that's why a lot of times I'm not even speaking in spaces. Y'all don't want to hear what I have to say. You don't want to hear what's actually going on the ships. You don't want to hear the really weird stuff, the monsters that we see, all the different creatures that we see, the weird things, where the wall disappears and here comes the light, something walking in through the wall and taking you out of your body, being transferred into bodies, the cloning. And we're going to talk to Jason about this whole weird super soldier thing, this 15 and back, 20 and back, whatever's going on, you guys. This is the stuff you don't want to hear. You don't want to hear what's actually going on. So this community can be very frustrating for me. So I'm really happy that everyone was willing to tune in and listen to Ted. Thank you, Elections. I appreciate that you were able to listen today.
Well,
Tiff,
I appreciate real quickly, I appreciate what you're doing, Fringe, and everybody that's experiencing these things. I just can't even begin to express how much I respect you all and what you're having to go through. I mean, every one of you are just brave. And again, thank you for speaking up, Fringe.
yeah, thanks, Elections. I appreciate you being here. I appreciate anyone who's even willing to listen because even though that big rant that I just gave, I also understand that it's very difficult to believe. It's difficult to hear. If you've never experienced these types of things, it's difficult to even wrap our minds around. But because we're in ufology specifically, and because we're in these spaces and we're waiting for disclosure and we want to know about what's happening in ufology, what's happening on the ships, what are these beings doing? What do they want? Because we're here in this community, it's frustrating. I don't expect my neighbor to believe, what's going on. They haven't even wrapped their mind around UFOs being real. But I expect something more from this community, and that is just listen to the experiencers. Sarah, go ahead.
I absolutely adore you, Fringe, Tiff, and Doomer. I am so grateful that you're giving me this moment. I have been listening anon. It's been a fantastic space. I am literally on my cigarette break, but I just finished and I have to get back up. So I wanted to say something really quickly. Ross Colhart just did a post. This is important. Bloomberg reporter Anna Marie Horden was in a room. We're waiting for audio and video. Trump just stated he says about Obama, he quote unquote gave away classified information on aliens. So just dropping that, dropping the very fact that Trump hates Obama, so he's angry at him and thinks he's probably going to get him for revealing classified information. But at the same exact point, what clown world do we live in that this might be our disclosure? So FYI, I'm so sorry, and you guys, it's been a great space, and I have to listen to none because I'm at work, but. Thank you for letting me just jump up here. I thought it was really important to just say this, and I also really am excited that you guys are continuing to speak. And Fringe, you're always welcome in my spaces to speak your mind. And I am. When is this Jason space? Because I'll be listening anonymously to that as well today. Anyway, I love you guys, and just waiting for audio and visual on that. So thanks.
So Jason will be next month, I think. And I think Trump said that Obama revealed classified information. And that leaves it pretty broad because he did share some things, I guess, regarding Area 51. So it could just be that. We should always be wary right now of the bread and circus kind of situation in the middle of such crazy times. But yeah, and also Fringe, I wanted to ask about those boxes real quick before we move on to another person. Uh, does it seem similar like sarcophagus? Is it something we could ponder sometime in the back channels about potential the sarcophagus being used back in the day? They were the original, what now is being used on the ships as the black boxes. It maybe is that technology that was more openly used because our discernment regarding the beings weren't didn't develop at the time. We were too excited at the time. Maybe the sarcophagus soul siphoning, and now they've moved it to the black boxes on the ships, soul siphoning. So just something for us
Oh
to talk
yeah, that's
about.
interesting, Tiff. So the boxes I've seen, my perception now, when you're locked up in one of these boxes, you only have so much perception, right? But my perception was that it was a smaller, like the size of a decent sized TV, not a giant TV. Maybe I'm not very good at the math and the measurements, but
Oh, okay. So it wasn't like something you sat in.
smaller. No, but remember that we do have a lot of sightings of these vats. They're tubes and they're full of liquid usually, and those are human size. I mean, sometimes there's children in there. People have seen grays inside these tubes, and then humans have been inside these tubes, and so they're more human size. So that's possible, that's just some kind of an upgrade in the technology. You can look at just even we had Pascagoula, we had Philip Mantle in here not too long ago, and just looking at the difference in technology, we're not the only ones getting better at technology. They're getting better side by side, and they're already so much more advanced than we are. So I'm sure the technology is improving. I think that's another reason people are under the impression that abductions are not happening anymore. I can't tell you, we have super influencers in the community saying abductions aren't happening anymore. They're just better at their technology. They're better at the covertness. So they are learning just like we're learning. I can assure you, abductions are still happening. And speaking to researchers in the back channels, they're not any less often. If anything, David Jacobs' research showed that it's a certain percentage of the population. They think it's around 2%, but it could be much higher than that. And that percentage just keeps growing. The percentage stays the same, but the number of abductions increases as the population is increasing. So yeah, the boxes are interesting. It's technology. So much of what I first perceived as the supernatural, as the paranormal, when it was first happening to me, when I was wrapping my mind around it, I realized later this is technology. It's just technology we don't understand, and it appears supernatural to us. But these creatures, their mastery of physics and technology is just so much more advanced than ours. So does
That's exactly where my mind was going. It was like the archon or
the
archons.
archons,
I
yeah.
was thinking about those and having, maybe they've gone more covert. So that's the exact pathway my brain was going.
Yeah, I think they're just getting better. And we talk too a lot about what is this thing where they can take our astral bodies out of our bodies with this technology, these black boxes. Um, Again, I've seen a very colorful box. I woke up one day and saw a very colorful, a rainbow looking box sitting right on my husband's chest. And I know what that box means. That box means they're taking your soul, your astral body, your consciousness. We have different names for it. Some people call it the subtle body or the energy body. They're taking this out of our physical body. And being inside that thing it's not fun. You guys heard the trauma in Ted's voice today. A lot of times when I'm doing interviews or I'm just speaking on this topic, um, nobody gets to really see that trauma, the PTSD. And like you said already, Tiff, earlier in the space, the body always remembers. And that's how you can always kind of check in and say, what's going on here? I might sound like, oh yeah, they took my soul out of my body and put me into a box. That's traumatic. It's trauma. So just because we speak about it very cavalierly and we have these chats, we're like, oh yeah, took me out of my body, put me in a box, took me out of my body, put me into an alien body, took me out of my body, put me into someone else's body. It's not cavalier. This is wild stuff that's happening. Tiff or Doomer, you want to jump in, and then we'll get to we have Carl and we have Das coming up. And then let's review our spaces too, Doomer. I don't know how much time you need before we get to Michaela. If you want to talk about Alberino, and we also have Jason coming up.
Yeah, I'd love to go over the spaces. So we also have Laura Eisenhower come up. I'm so bad with the cover art stuff, Tiff. I want to ask for your help again. I'll do it myself if you're too busy. Tiff, you also have music that you should be promoting. I think that's public. I don't think I'm giving anything away here. I don't think I'm breaking confidentiality. But you need to be promoting your stuff. We're in a doom inflation right now. There's doomflation going on hard. Um, in fact, when there was an outage yesterday and the messages went down for everybody, I thought I was getting banned for spamming too much because otherwise I don't know how to stop. But the doom is happening right now. So we have Michaela in less than 2 hours, 5 p.m. Eastern. We have after that Alberino Thursday, 2 p.m. Eastern. So this upcoming Thursday, February 26th. After that, we have Laura Eisenhower, and I just need the cover art for that. And then we have Jason, and we do have that up in the nest. It's the second slide from the left, but I think we do still need a post with the space on it so people can tap on it, right? So the spaces link is there in the cover art post. But we have so much doom coming up. Cover art is currently our rate limiter. So what we
That's
really
because we
need is
only
an
have one
AI
creative
agent.
person in the trio, and that's Tiff. Tiff is the only.
It's true.
That's what
Tiff.
my usefulness is in this trio. I don't talk much, and all my thoughts are just kind of like, ooh, wouldn't this be great? Or what do you think of this? So my art is where I fit in.
It's true. I mean, if you're wondering right now why we don't have disclosure, I mean, fuck Obama and Trump. The reason you don't have disclosure is Tiff, because she just can't crank out art fast enough right now. And what we're hoping is to have a whole AI agent, I don't know, 16, 1,000, I don't know how many we need to replace Tiff, but that's currently the leading goal, achieve AGI, so we can make enough artwork so we can handle all this disclosure coming through the doom space.
And by the way,
So
Ulrich, I know I'm interrupting, but that's really the only way to get a word in.
no, you're good.
Is
You're
we
good.
are going to have to drag the doom out of probably Jason and Laura Eisenhower, right? We're gonna have to drag the doom out of those people. I mean, at least I brought Ted. Ted's just doom. Like he's all about the doom. He's already been through the love and light. He was already conditioned into the love and light, and he came out the other side into the doom, kind of like what happened to me. But there's gonna be some work to do if we want to bring the doom with those other spaces.
I mean, I don't know if Jason is listening. I think he's used to our good cop, bad cop play. Do you know what I mean? So, I mean, Fringe, I wouldn't give away our tradecraft, right? Like we can't constantly do revelation of the method and expect that we can still, pull the intel out of people like we normally do. Some know, some are privy to our game. Some enjoy it, like Heidi. I think Heidi, I I think Heidi's working us at this point. Heidi Hollis, we're the ones being worked at this point. But I'm looking forward to Jason, and Jason is on a bit of a bad boy disclosure arc. I think Jason is, the people's whistleblower. Everybody, all the intel agencies are like, oh, he's speaking in spaces. All the documentarians, probably Spielberg is like, what is this guy going to say right now? But I think Jason also has, I don't want to call it a chip on his shoulder, but um, when I think of when I think of remember when we had a few people, Dylan Borland, um, Nucitelli or Nusatelli. Once you're in the public eye and then you start talking on X, there's a bit of a development arc of you go from 3 to 10 handlers to like 200 people telling you what to say and what not to say on X. And Jason has been through that for years at this point. So I'm really interested to hear what Jason has to say, what he has to share, and I think he knows. He I think he's going to come with some doom, and I think he knows we're going to order some doom dessert. You know what I mean? Some doom dessert.
Yeah,
But
and
so
I think for me, I want to talk about the things that the community laughs about. I want to talk about the things that James Fox didn't want to hear, all the things that supposedly take away his credibility that are just so incredibly ridiculous. And all that does is tell me you have never experienced the phenomenon if you think what Jason is saying is ridiculous. It just shows naivete and an ignorance and a lack of experience, is what it shows to me.
and I'm so glad you said that. You helped me remember. I'm still part of my brain is sleeping. I'm not saying that my genome has been merged with a dolphin and I'm a walking gray. All right, but there is one entire hemisphere that's still shut off. And What I wanted to say was what you said about experiencers, right? And also about UFO spaces, and also regarding disclosure. Whatever half-baked, I wanted to say mulatto disclosure, because apparently our disclosure is some biracial mix between Trump and Obama right now, right? What what disclosure is the little bitch fest that's going on between Trump and Obama, the little crumbs that we get between them. That's what we call disclosure right now. Fuck that. Until one of those people are forced to say something, you have disclosure in UFOX, and we represent the Overton window. The Overton window is the edge of society of what you're willing to talk about. And we do have, I think, a responsibility. I'm arrogant enough to say it's our responsibility to be the very bleeding edge and push that Overton window. The Epstein files, as redacted as they were, push the Overton window. So what is left on the conspiracy clutch your pearls table? It's really just UFOs, aliens eating people, soul harvesting, soul recycling, loose farming, eternal soul damnation. Aliens created you. They messed with religions. Aliens are God. Aliens are the devil. Whatever it is, it's just
Epstein works for them.
Epstein works for them, right?
He
But
really
we
he
already have.
does. But Toomer, what happens when people finally arrive at that place? Who do you think those children are being sacrificed to? Does it,
Thank
how
you.
many people are now coming around going, "Oh my gosh, oh, this was real." Yeah, no shit, it was real. And guess what else is real that you don't want to wrap your minds around? Some of this human trafficking, they are being funneled right to the underground bases with the aliens. Yes, we know how crazy that sounds, but that's what's going on. And when you finally arrive at that place, that's when you're going to figure out that they might be meeting you in the afterlife as well.
Yeah, and and my next question for Ted would have been Epstein, right? I would have loved to hear, and I also felt guilty, and I'm not going to lie. When he said I'm not going to be around for much longer, I'm like, well, damn, we have to ask one more question, right? And this is the place ufology is in. The place ufology is in. If we don't bring in ex octogenarian whistleblower, they might not be alive. They might be taking all the secrets with them. So much of the program is held just in the minds of an octogenarian right now, or has already died with someone. And that's the state we're in, and we didn't produce that. So it is. I don't want to say it's morally gray, but there's that real tension there, because I don't think we think that Trump Trump is also right on the edge of being an octogenarian, but I don't think any of us are worried that if Trump doesn't speak, he's taking all the secrets with him, right? It's other people. And if we're talking about the Epstein files pushed the Overton window. They said this is now what you can say without sounding crazy anymore. And so eating people, eating babies, mutilation, satanic rituals, sacrifice, that's within the Overton window. So if we have a job to do, it's to talk about, it's to push the edge, to be honest with you, right? Are we going to be waiting for another drop of redacted files to say what we're allowed to say so we don't sound crazy, or are we actually going to be the people who push the Overton window? And I think we have a responsibility to push the Overton window. Otherwise, disclosure is just virtue signaling. I'm going to say that again. If you don't think that you have a role to play in pushing the Overton window when it comes to truth, then all you're doing is virtue signaling when it comes to disclosure. You're just waiting for some files drop or some authority figure or some NPC to tell you, yeah, this is what we're allowed to talk about. And if abusing children, pedophilia, raping people isn't enough to push the Overton window for you to talk about aliens, and the end of the world apparently also isn't, well, that's fine, but then you don't actually want to have a conversation that's new. You don't actually want to have a conversation that makes a difference, that leaves people thinking, wow, I think differently, I learned something. And that's my goal here. I think at this point, when Fringe and I talk, we're never coming from the point of this is what I want you to believe. We want information, and we want to hear what the other person has to say. And if the Overton window for you is who do I trust, or what am I supposed to believe, your mind isn't open to begin with, right? Like if what you're willing to read and think about is, oh, this falls within what I'm comfortable with, this falls within what I'm willing to believe, you haven't even started listening. And I don't think, and I know a lot of us say this, I think who should I trust and what should I believe are de facto the wrong questions. Those are the questions you answer after you've listened to some shit that probably is going to offend you. You don't need to believe a single thing and you don't need to trust a single thing. But if you don't hear a single thing because already in the beginning you're saying, I'm not sure whether I believe it, I don't know whether I trust it, um, then you're giving yourself a lobotomy before they put the ice pick in your hand. And I would say do the lobotomy afterwards. That's my personal view. And thanks for letting me grandstand a bit. But I think especially at this time when we're on the edge of confirmation or disclosure, we're going to be the ones pushing the Overton window. It isn't going to be the mulatto disclosure that you get between Trump and Obama. It's not.
Yeah, our mulatto disclosure is just a little bit more than that. I think so when I first came to this community, it was 2023, and I was told I kid you not, you guys, that I was an enemy to disclosure. I know we joke a lot about that. I got messages from researchers saying, please stop. Like, stop. You're bringing discredit to disclosure because you're lumping it in with all these conspiracy theories. And here I was, having a father, a biological father, who was literally running an international human trafficking ring for the so-called elites, politicians. Dianne Feinstein, who later became, who was a United States senator, sitting senator, uh, police officers, city manager Dianne Feinstein and her husband, involved in rituals while they're sexually assaulting a 13-year-old on the regular, by the way. This was not a one-time thing. My biological father did 5 years in San Quentin over this human trafficking. So I came to this community already knowing the connections between people like we're talking about today. We're talking about Epstein. Well, that's happening all over the place, you guys. It's not just Epstein. This whole thing is gathering of blackmail material against our most powerful people. So I came here knowing this background information, and I was told I was dangerous to disclosure because, unfortunately, and this is the same type of mindset that people like James Fox have. When James Fox got upset and threatened to walk out, when we wanted to
It
hear
was beyond the
Jason's
Overton window,
Jason's
right?
story, right? It's too far. I'm a danger to disclosure because I'm linking these conspiracy theories that are in fact related. Again, who do you think they're sacrificing their children to? Who do you think that is? It's these so-called aliens and their progenitors. And so people like James Fox and all these people at the upper echelon of ufology, they only want to talk about this nuts and bolts recovery, craft recovery, etc., because they think that anything else brings discredit to the topic. And so here we are talking about UFOs, and you're worried about what might bring discredit to the UFOs. And you don't want to talk about the human trafficking that's going on behind the scenes because it might discredit your precious nuts and bolts a UFO disclosure that we've just been begging for how many years? I only been here 3 years. We've been begging for it that whole time. Not sure exactly when it started. So yeah, my rant is over. Tiff, did you want to jump in before we get to Daz?
I would like to point out that as we listen to experiencers' stories, now kind of with new ears, as the stories are coming out regarding Epstein, regarding some of these darker things that are going on, the types of people that are in power and the activities that they take part in. Not everybody, but it's been shown, things have been divulged that they are doing these things. Now, when you're listening to the experiencer stories, comparing those to some of the revelations, to the activities and technologies, you can kind of see some similarities, like I said, new ears. Just I think moving forward when we listen to experiencer stories, we might hear new things.
And really briefly, we're going to have people on that offend some section of everyone throughout our spaces. And somebody just they misspelled mulatto. Amy, I don't think mulatto is spelled with a D, but it's fine. We're going to have spaces that people will be offended by just because we're quote unquote platforming a guest. nobody here is saying that you need to listen to a doom space just because it includes some doom. And we're not just going to bring people in who are only dooming hard. There's a bunch of love and lighters that have incredible intel, and we might disagree with their viewpoint or their orientation. But we've said from the very beginning, we're so open-minded. We even accept positivity in this room. We we even accept. We even want to hear from love and lighters. And so nobody's saying that you have to listen to something, but you have the freedom to walk out the door to leave a space. But if you start censoring people, people don't have the freedom to say no to information that they never heard in the first place. So I think that's absolutely important, that you give people the license to hear shit that you're offended by, to speak on shit that you're offended by, and you give yourself the license to not listen to something you don't want to hear. Maybe you've heard it 1,000 times and you know the counter intel or the narrative that's coming out of their voice. I really think freedom of speech goes beyond just left and right. Disclosure, in my view, is about betrayal. So get offended harder, and broaden your mind as much as you can. Nobody's saying you need to change your beliefs, your faith, or who you trust. But the only way it works for everybody is that you give the free will to the person to not tune in, not that you go around playing Spider-Man censorship, pointing like, "Oh, you were in this space, you were in that space." Does that make sense? If and also what you said about status and reputation, the idea that ufology has a reputation to protect requires that we first have one to lose. Our only reputation we have is the crazy shit. Now's the time to let your ufology freak flag fly and shove the truth gravy into people's faces at the Thanksgiving table and say, I told you so. If anything, you should be more ruthless about all the people who stigmatized you rather than trying to gain the approval of the people who, put you at the other end of the cafeteria. This is the moment when your reputation rests on being right about the crazy shit. It is not about staying within safe little circles and be like, oh no, that's too crazy. Uh, does that make sense? I think the irony that we're gatekeeping on the discussion of what's acceptable is ridiculous. That's what government is for. That's what skiffs are for. That's what politicians are for. Don't be another skiff politician censorship person. We've had 80 years of that. Be somebody who's like, yeah, maybe other people, maybe 1% of the population is smart enough to have discernment and come to their own fucking conclusions. So I really think that is where ufology needs to lead. We need to lead not in protecting our reputation. We need to lead in being the first to arrive at the truth and letting the rest of the sheep and the lemming shamefully figure out that they were wrong the entire fucking time.
Jump in, Daz. Welcome. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, I'm sorry that I missed what's his name? Ted's talk. Oh, that TED talk. Yeah, no, I'm sorry I missed it. I was working, but I will try and definitely catch the replay. My first question, and be honest, am I a love and letter?
Yes.
Are you a love and lighter, Daz?
Yes, Daz. Really? Are you having an identity crisis right now?
No, because
Daz,
I am I a love and
you
lighter, Fringe?
you are my favorite love and lighter though, Daz.
Okay. Well, I am trying to shift my consciousness to hold more of the doom. It's not easy. It's not easy. It's scary. And I think I just try to acknowledge that, But I've always said that when it comes to you guys' spaces, I think of Tom Montauk, Jason Giorgiani. Oh my God, mind blowing, right? Amazing. So again, I'm sorry that I missed this one. I'll definitely have to listen to it. I can hold the darkness, but I feel like for me as a host, because I haven't necessarily gone through the experiences, those dark experiences, I don't discount them, but I try to see it from that more positive side. I try to hold the balance, right? But I feel like I'm ready to really take that dive when it comes to Fringe and invite her to one of my spaces to really understand her story. I've never really understood or even really heard the story. The little snippets that I've heard since I've come in after Ted has left, I'm like, oh my God, I had no idea. So we definitely do need to listen to people, because I respect Fringe. I say to her all the time, I'm like, why are you not coming on stage? And she's like, no, 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 I'm okay. No, no, no. And then you come into her space and then you really hear the truth. And yes, it's her truth, but I think it's a truth that we all definitely need to be ready for. And the reason why I say that is because I find that there are some people that hold these dark truths and they impose it too much on people. And the way how my energy is I back that away. I'm like, no, it's like, we need to try and take baby steps, I guess. But because this is your space, anyone who comes into your space has to be ready for your truth. And I respect that. So I will message you. I think I would like to learn more and hear more about your story, and just say that I always loved the Doom spaces. I thought I was a Doomer. So to hear you lot say that I'm a love and lighter, I'm a bit upset now.
Oh, poor Daz, our favorite silk chocolate, right, Daz? So Daz, you're exactly right. So I do my own spaces. I do spaces with Tiff and Doomer, and then I do my own spaces, or they're a little bit smaller, just chit chatting with Carolyn, sometimes Amy, because I don't want to be the person who's just coming up on stage in every single space, crashing all the spaces just to tell everyone that they're delusional, and that the love and light that you think is happening is actually probably not true. Nobody wants to hear that. I figure if people want to hear what I have to say, they'll come tune into my space where I can say whatever I want. I'm just not into crashing other people's spaces, coming up and insisting on my view. But if I'm invited to speak in a space and I'm available, I will. A lot of times I'm not available. So a lot of times, Dash, spaces, they're
You're in
happening
the
while
gym.
while I'm at
You're
the
in the gym,
gym.
innit?
Yeah, I'm at the gym a lot. And I have a family, I have a husband, I have grandchildren. I'm not always able to speak in spaces, even if I might be listening. But Daz, because you missed Ted, and hopefully you go back and listen to it, but I'm just going to give you another side to what your thoughts are on at least the some of the phenomenon. So Ted was the psychic medium. He had been seeing the dead and communicating with the dead since he was a child. He had spirit guides. He was very, very well recognized in his field as a psychic medium with spirit guides giving out good information. And he would tell you, if he was here right now, that most, if not all, of this idea of the love and light, of the channeling of these experiences that feel good, and getting in touch with spirit guides, and all of the positivity that we think we see is a lie, and it's a masquerade. And that's why Carla Turner made the title of her book called Masquerade of Angels, because Ted too thought he was dealing with angels for so much of his life. When I first realized what was happening to me and put it all together, I thought these were our space brothers coming to ascend us to the 5D. I was told I was a star seed and I needed to spread the love and light to the community. We're indoctrinated as experiencers, as abductees, as contactees, whatever you want to call yourself is your prerogative. But we are spokes holes for the phenomenon. And most of what's happening, and Ted would say most, if not all, what's happening that you perceive as love and light is a lie, and it's just a screen. And if it is in fact love and light, that's just so that you'll go out and tell everyone that these are our space brothers here to ascend us to the 5D. So that's what he would say if he was here. I feel comfortable speaking for him in this case because I know him fairly well. So it's just something to think about. It's something to think about, that so much of the abduction research revolves around people who believe they were having positive contact. And, when we look at things like the free study, where we have 80%, 75 to 80% of contact with these so-called aliens is perceived as positive, or the abductee at least can look back on the experience and take something positive from it. And then there's only about 15 to 20% at the most of people who can actually see through the mask that this phenomenon wears. And so we are a minority. There's only a handful of us. So I really appreciate anyone willing to listen to what we have to say. I think once you see it, you won't be able to unsee it. It's kind of like if you're, I've said this so many times before, but if you have an adult and you have a child going to Disneyland, the 4-year-old who doesn't have a whole lot of experience with Mickey Mouse, they've only seen Mickey Mouse on TV, they get to Disneyland, they're only 4 years old, they have this giant imagination, and there's Mickey Mouse in the costume. And that 4-year-old will fully buy in that that's Mickey Mouse, unless they're very astute. They're going to fully buy in that that's Mickey Mouse. But never in my wildest dreams would I be able to convince you, Daz, that that was Mickey Mouse because you're older and you have experience and you know that's probably a teenager inside that costume getting a minimum wage to interact and pretend to be Mickey Mouse. And so once you've seen behind the curtain and you understand that there's a wizard there behind the curtain creating all the magic, it's very difficult to unsee. And nobody wants to hear it. Nobody wants to hear that there's actually a wizard behind the curtain and what you're seeing is not actually real and true. And so that's my point of view. That's probably, I do believe that's what Ted would also say. So I appreciate that you're even listening, Daz, to a
Yeah,
different side.
I love coming to the doom spaces. That's what I'm saying. Like when you were speaking, I was thinking of is it the Oz effect, where each experiencer is gonna see things and experience things in their own subjective way. But I was also thinking, like, what about a good higher source, right? That's what I was thinking. Like below that, there's going to be deception. Below that, there's going to be those that masquerade and trick people. But I feel like ultimately there is a good higher source. Everything that's coming out with the Epstein files, all of this link that you're speaking about with the trafficking and the aliens, I don't like think that you're saying anything inaccurate. It's dark, of course, but it's all now on our TVs. But if there's such a darkness in this world, then I also believe that there is also a light. I just always have been that person to be like, let's not spiritually bypass and let's not recognize each side of it. And I just feel like your story definitely needs to be heard more from someone like me so that we can definitely bring more balance. So, yeah, that was amazing. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Des. I also believe there's a light. If it weren't for the light, I probably wouldn't have made it. I wouldn't have made it out. I wouldn't have made it out alive. I believe there is a light. I believe there is a good side. I just happen to believe, and I think this is backed up by a lot of the research, that the so-called good side, the positive side, the side of the light, are largely non-interventional. And I know people don't want to hear that, but a lot of times the light only steps in when the dark has actually overstepped. The light is not taking us out of our beds. They're not doing experiments on us. They're not cloning us. They're not putting us into other bodies. They're not sexually assaulting us and our children, by the way, on the ships. They're not claiming to come here to ascend us to the 5D, which is just a lie. They're not trying to sell us a used car. So they're not appearing as orbs in the sky so that we can be fascinated and want to worship them and to become obsessed with them and end up in psychosis in a mental institution. None of that is the light. And yet that's what most Lee is perceived as the light in this community. So thank you so much, Des. Uh, we have Bart with us. Bart, jump in.
Hi, French. Thanks for the space. Just a shout out to you, Carol and Amy. And just wanted to say, I concur with what you and Doom were saying about the apprehension of coming forward and sharing your story and uh, the way that you were initially received. Um, it's, and others may not know that I've shared in space before. I'm a survivor of satanic ritual abuse. And it's only in the last 12 months I've come out and publicly stated this and connected it with my abduction experience. And because I'm very much involved in the Christian community, they don't want to know this. They're completely closed to any of this. And I just wanted to say that, yeah, I concur and I thank you for your spaces and it was the first space of yours that I came into that I first publicly actually put out there that I was SRA and an abductee. I hadn't done it before because I was too concerned at the backlash that I would get. So spaces like what you're hosting this morning, I think, are imperative for people like me that are too scared, for lack of a better term, to put themselves out in the public arena. So just wanted to say thank you.
Oh, thanks, Bart. I really appreciate that. There are most days I wonder what I'm even doing here in this community. So thank you. I appreciate that very much. Doomer, why is your hand up?
Yeah, I wanted to first of all thank you for the kind words, Bart. I the whole "Are you a love and lighter" thing. Of course, we characterize it, but there's no binary. It's not like doomers are against. It's not like when we wake up in the middle of the night and we need to use the bathroom, we don't flick the light on because it's like, don't let the light in. And it's not like we hate people and we don't love our families, right? So, um, and I am not saying what Fringe said is wrong, but the whole point of the doom spaces is that most people are going to disagree with us with most things, and we want, at least my goal is, I want it to be the most enjoyable conversation versus a space where everybody's walking on eggshells, because anything that could be perceived as fear based or fear mongering, you don't get to talk about, right? So if you call something a guinea pig, that doesn't make it a guinea pig. So just because love and lighters are coming from a fear based position, which they are, generally speaking, just because they call themselves love and lighters, doesn't mean that the love actually has any substance. If your love is something that can't tolerate reality, if your love is something that can't marshal or deal with any fear, well, who is really who is really the negative one here? Because there used to be a time where therapy was where you took your difficult issues and you learned how to deal with them in reality. And over the last 20 to 30 years, therapy has become a space focused on a safe space where you just make sure that the patient is in a nice little bubble of psychological safety and nothing is challenged. And so, to me, when you hear a lot of love and lighters talk about, oh, you're fear mongering, it's all fear based, they're usually the ones talking about fear, and somebody else has a deeper perspective of love, which is maybe your love is strong enough to face what's real. So to be honest with you, Daz, I
And
am a
and
love
to
and
interrupt
lighter.
you, Ulrich, to be
No, no,
strong
interrupt
enough
me.
to come up here and say it. I had a post quite some time ago when I was being called a fear mongerer. By the way, I don't live my life in fear. I don't live my life in fear. I live my life in the truth. I have faced the truth and come out the other side. I think people who are willing to come into this community and tell you what I believe is the truth, which is very, very dark, are the people who love you the most.
Yeah, yeah,
I
and go ahead, Tiff.
No, I was just gonna say one of the things that I always I hear people say they're like, oh well, I don't like talking about that. Like Dad was saying, like that's scary kind of stuff to talk about. But I feel like as a collective, when we hear these things, we're like, I can't stand for that in my reality. I don't want that to happen, and so we have to acknowledge. If we ignore it, it festers. So bringing it to light, shining light on it. When people say shining a light on things, that's us acknowledging it in our consciousness that these things are happening. You can even say potentially if that makes you more comfortable. Like you don't want to maybe own it, but these are the kinds of things that you cannot accept. And the more people who understand that in their brains as a collective, we start eradicating that behavior.
Yeah, and we
Mm.
all three of us have many overlapping and some conflicting beliefs. My 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 doomerism, the pessimistic side of me, is because I actually believe that um the good side does intervene. And so I'm disappointed at the non-intervention, right? And so and my doomerism when it comes to love and lighters um is because it's my conclusion, it's my belief that if you go full hog on positivity, being a good person, being virtuous, that attracts negativity, and I am for it. So people who are carrying a light around with them should not be afraid of the dark. That's the whole irony, right? People who believe that they're really carrying around the truth are fine with a collective 70-80% getting it wrong and letting them have free speech and run their speech. It would be a dream of mine if after every doom space there was another love and lighter space and people just shit on every single thing we said, because then people would listen to more doom spaces, people would listen to what the love and lighters have to say, and we would just get more and more love and lighters in here. We have a lot of love and lighters in here, right? So when I'm shitting on love and lighters, I'm shitting on weak light and fake love, because the whole purpose of therapy in its healthy sense is what Jordan Peterson talks about, right? Instec velinis in venitur. um, that which you must need, you will find where you least want to look, or in filth it shall be found. So, what is your love worth? Is your love worth only the conversations that snowflakes can tolerate, or does your love also include reality? So, I am actually a love and lighter. It's just a love and lighter. Your connotation um, doesn't currently come with courage. It doesn't currently come with dealing with the fear. It's just fear based right now. And I'd much rather be misunderstood as a doomer than falsely understood as a love and lighter, to be honest with you, Daz.
Yeah, I think it's very, very interesting what you guys are saying. I just love your approach where you guys can have these conversations. I'm not even going to say dark. I like the term doom, and it's not overbearing. It has such high intelligence. You bring in the right people to speak so that they can get their voices known. And like I say, it's just not hijacking every space with, you know, where you're coming from. And I know that there's a lot of people that do that. So that's why I just think that it's really important to listen to this aspect of the phenomena, because I hear the message. There's so much that's being left out, and we're in a time where we need to hear the full picture so that we can be prepared, know how to protect ourselves, and how we can move forward collectively. That's what I feel when I come into you guys spaces. So I do need to jump, but thanks for that. That was amazing space.
I really appreciate that.
Thank you,
That
Dad.
Daz.
Yeah, I appreciate you too, Daz. And kind of along those same lines, what Doomer was saying, I don't want to see the community embrace a false light. I want the community to embrace what I believe is a true light. I don't want to see the community get duped by the phenomenon when we have so much research showing that it's all a lie. I mean, people who come to where I'm at, they usually don't start out there. They usually start out believing these are our space brothers, they're here for our own good. And then they come out the other side and go, oh man, I can't believe. And for myself, just to interrupt myself, I think we've lost Science Bob a couple of times. I
He's
think
back.
Bob, I
He's
think
come
you're
back.
glitching there.
He's traveling. That's why he's away.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, I think a bunch of people were glitching today. So Daz, I want to see you embrace the actual true and real light. I don't want to see people embrace a false light. And so when I look at the abduction research and I see so many people who used to believe, like Ted Rice, who believed he was in touch with his spirit guides until he figured out that one of them was a reptilian that was sexually assaulting him, by the way, Daz. I don't want to see you embrace a fake reptilian spirit guide. I don't want to see people embrace a false light. I'm here, having come out the other side to say, hey, you guys, you know what? I believe in the light too. I just don't believe it acts in this way. I don't believe that it pretends to be a spirit guide who's actually a reptilian who's sexually assaulting you on the ships. And so much of what we're dealing with in this community, in my personal opinion, is the false light. It is a lie. It is a scam. It is a manipulation and a deception. And so I think the greatest courage in this community is being willing to tell what I believe is the truth, and not just having a one-sided view on the phenomenon, because there's just too much research showing people seeing through this mask. And people like Carla Turner believed that abductees were actually adapting to the abductions and to the technology. If you see today what I was speaking about earlier in the space, there's not a lot of abductees getting regression because we don't have to. We don't have to get regression. Everything that I ever say about my abductions is because I remember it, just like I'm going to remember what I did today or yesterday or the day before. There's not a lot of regression going on. And so if you look at the research and see that we're able to see behind the mask, we're able to see behind the curtain. And so many of us now realize that this is a false light. Daz, I was taught to be a starseed. I was taught to be a spokesman for the aliens. And so I'm coming at this from experience. I'm coming at this from being on your side of the fence. I don't know where I was going with that. Bart, jump in. I think we lost Bob again.
That's okay. I was sorry, was going to say some breaking news, but it's not connected as to what I thought it was. That Prince Andrew has been arrested, and I thought it was in relation to the latest Epstein dump, but apparently it's not. It's for divulging classified material, but. So it wasn't the breaking news I thought it was. Sorry.
Oh, but that is breaking news because I also thought it was for the Epstein stuff, but it's not. Yeah, that's fantastic. Shocker.
If we can round out, excuse me, if we can round out at the top of the hour, just so I can have an hour break, make sure I don't fall asleep or get hijacked before the next space. That would be great. I let Rose up here as our last person. Is that okay? Can we have like an hour before our second doom?
No, totally. I actually agree very much. I am at home with a sick kid today.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, Rose, welcome to the doom space.
Hey, so yeah, I only have mine's really short and I just wanted to share something that is on my mind and prudent, I think. The only experience that I had was very much two-dimensional, like I was there and in my physical body at the same time while being abducted. And at the time, it was because apparently I was talking too much about or sharing too much information with a friend of mine about what I called the secret alien adoption agency. And that is why I was hogtied at the time. Okay, so fast forward 10 years. My friend who I gave that information to and was talking to, who was also in the foster care system with me growing up and all this stuff, he did end up taking his life or being killed at the beginning of January. Well, my husband and I were in no contact, and he was a friend of both of ours. So it's people's lives are at stake, who have experiences, real experiences, abduction stories, and things like that. And I just wanted to share that. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Rose. And you're absolutely right. We do this at our own peril. I'm not sure if the community fully appreciates this. I was talking again to Mira and Gillis yesterday about this. We very frequently we pay a price, especially when we have these types of conversations, when we give out information, when we speak on the dark side of the phenomenon. Barbara Bartholock has a quote out there that maybe I'll post it later on today. That this doesn't come for free, you guys. I did a space. I did a podcast with the Nephilim Death Squad. I paid the price for 2 days on pushback from the phenomenon for that. This isn't free. People are killed over this. A lot of the OG researchers have paid with their lives. So yeah, thank you very much, Rose. I appreciate that. You want to wrap it up, Doomer, and then tell everyone when our next space will be later today.
Yeah, I still see a hand up. Bart, if it's something you want to say briefly, 1 to 2 minutes. And I'm fine with rounding out that way. Maybe it's just my side. Maybe you guys don't see a hand. Yeah, our next space is in an hour. What is that? 2 p.m. Pacific, 3 p.m. 2 p.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern. We have Michaela coming back. She's going to tell us why she went dark, what she's been doing for the last year, what her interest is right now regarding nonprofits, Black programs, and what she calls infiltrating disclosure. And I think it's going to be exciting. There's a lot of stuff where I spoke with her briefly earlier today. She has some new information, some stuff I didn't want to hear about. I wanted to save it for the space. And just on the love and lighter talk, it's really important that as hard as we doom, if we can't, if love and lighters, so called, don't want to come into the doom space because they don't feel like they're going to get the most interesting or thorough interview, then we've also failed. The whole point is to be able to have the most dangerous and the most indulgent, uncomfortable conversation here. So I want the conversations here to be enjoyable. And I think the irony is not coincidental that we talk about the darkest subjects here and we have the least drama here in our doom spaces. And I'm incredibly proud of that. And I think there's a reason for that. If you're actually having a real conversation, a genuine disagreement is the end of conflict. It's not the beginning of conflict. And so I want for this to be the most enjoyable place to have the most dangerous conversation possible. And I'm deeply grateful to everybody who keeps on tuning in, despite the fact that we have guests on and we say shit that pisses them off and they disagree with. That's the goal. That's the whole point of it.
Tiff,
Thanks, guys, and it's been fun, and I'll see you guys again in an hour.
it has been a blast. We're already possibly scheduling another space with Ted. So thank you both so much, you guys. Thank you for everyone coming to listen. Thank you for having an open mind. Thank you for listening to my rants. So just being here and having an open mind and being willing to listen is fantastic. Thank you so much. We will now commence the awkward silence at the end of each space for the speakers. There's 10 or 15-second delay until the listeners catch up. So we'll let that time pass and we will end it and we'll see you guys in about an hour.
And also Timothy Alberino
Oh,
is
we
next
can't
week,
forget
and that's a
Timothy
big one.
Alberino. You want to know who landed Timothy Alberino is Doomer. Doomer landed Alberino, but we got to give
Let's get
Christopher
into this.
credit too.
Let's get into this. No, let's get into this briefly. No, it took a village to get Alberino. It really did, and it wouldn't have happened without Fringe, and it wouldn't have happened without Christophorus, and possibly it played a role in my anal retentiveness, my persistence, and the world is ending, right? If we're not going to push now, when are we? Are we going to wait another 6,000 years for our recycled containers? I'd like Alberino in this space for this reset, not the next one. So no, it really took a village. So thanks for playing along, Fringe.
I mean, Alberino and Eisenhower. Yeah, that'll be interesting. Okay, you guys, we'll start our silence so that we can be here again in an hour. Thank you all so much.